Hey dudes, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kendra for those of you who are new here. Today's video is going to be a little bit more serious. I want to talk about emotional abuse. I kind of want to do a shallow dive into what it looks like to be in an emotionally abusive relationship and signs and the types of people that you get involved with in these relationships. I want to make this video because I feel like when I was going through certain things in my life, if I had known what to look for or known what I was dealing with, then it wouldn't have gotten as bad as it did. Emotional abuse is dangerous because it can go unnoticed for so long. But from my personal experience, when I was in this emotionally abusive relationship, I didn't even recognize it as abuse. And it's also very difficult to talk about when you're in one because most of the time you know what to do, you know that you should leave. So you feel silly talking about it out loud to other people. And that's also very dangerous too because many times emotional abuse can lead to physical abuse. So if you are in one of these relationships, please find somebody that you can talk to about it, whether it be a sibling, your neighbor, just a friend. Just find somebody. That way, in case something was to escalate and something was to happen and you go missing or you're hurt in the hospital, somebody out there knows the truth. Because you don't want everybody to be saying, oh no, everything was fine when it wasn't. And they ask about your partner and everybody tell them that everything was good when it wasn't. And disclaimer, I'm not a doctor yet. And I'm just going to be going through some of my personal experiences with it, things that I saw, and just things that you can look out for and identify what is happening, because it's very, very confusing if you're in one of these relationships. And just a disclaimer, these things are still a little bit hard for me to talk about, so if I say a lot and things like that, it's also really just difficult to talk about even if you're not trying to go back and rethink about the memories, because it's such a complex issue. But while I'm editing this, I will try to cut out my ums as much as I can. So I guess I'll start by explaining narcissism because that's a root issue in the majority of these cases that I've learned about. So everybody should possess a fair amount of narcissism, right? Like everybody should love yourself. Everybody should have a good sense of self and have confidence to say no and confidence to go after the things that you want to go after. And all of us have, different narcissistic traits. But what I'm referring to in this video is whenever somebody has so much narcissism that they completely lack the ability to self-reflect. So narcissistic personality disorder is one of 4 personality disorders listed under cluster B. So these incredibly narcissistic individuals are actually very, very insecure. They have little to no sense of self, but they're very, very good at acting. So they'll often mask this by pretending to have this grandiose personality, or they'll be very, very confident. And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes they'll actually be really covert and play the victim all the time. So toxic people like this, although they act very confident, they have incredibly fragile egos. So they don't like to be criticized. They don't like to be told no. And even if you do it in the most polite of ways and it's supposed to be helping them, by giving them advice or explaining why you don't like the way that they're doing something or that it makes you feel bad when they do things, they're not going to like that. Some of the patterns you can look for in people like this are they lie a lot, and that's something you can catch on to pretty quickly if you're paying attention. Sometimes they're typically repeat cheaters, which that goes into cluster B personality types as a whole, all of them. And they're very good at showing empathy and pretending to have it, and they do feel very large amounts of guilt and shame, so they'll cry and apologize, but it's not, they don't feel bad in the way that normal people would. So normal people may actually feel bad for how they made you feel, whereas they feel bad, but it's because they got caught and now they have to deal with the feelings of shame and guilt, and they're also not getting what they want now. And it's really difficult to wrap your mind around, it took me a really long time to understand that. And if you are somebody who's like very caring and empathetic, understanding, these people will take those really beautiful qualities about you and turn them against you. Like in my personal experience, the fact that I was so understanding and could always see the good in people really got taken advantage of. Uh, and that's kind of the sad part about these relationships. These people try to tear you down by taking advantage of the most beautiful parts of yourself, and it also makes you not trust yourself. And these types of people, they're not necessarily good at communicating. It's just that they're very good at talking at you to get what they want. Um, so most of the time, if you bring something to their attention that bothered you or something that you don't like because it hurt your feelings, at first, most of the time, they'll try to deny it. Um, and even if you saw it, they will still try to deny it. And if that doesn't work, then they'll try to tell you that maybe it wasn't as bad as you think it was. So you start questioning, you start asking yourself, oh, well, maybe I'm just being a little bit dramatic. And then if that doesn't work, they flip it or they completely try to change the subject so you forget what the whole point of what you were talking about was. So for say, if we're having this discussion about apples and they'll start talking about oranges, right? So they'll change over to this completely different topic. And then by the end of it, you were confused. You can't even remember what you were arguing about in the first place. And most of these, what should have just been discussions, end up being arguments for hours. And a lot of times they'll say things like, oh, but I just want to bring you back to our team. You know, it's never about what you want, and it's like if you look at it as a game setup, they're always going to be cheating somehow. So you're never going to get what you want. It's never going to feel good. And most of the time, you'll end up wishing that you never even brought it up and apologizing. So, in my personal experience, this person would tell me that I was just horrible at communicating with them, and that's why it always went bad, and that's why they always ended up upset. Um, and that worked really well. I believed for a long time that I just was incapable of communicating with this person. I just thought I must really suck at communicating. So at its worst, I believed that I was terrible at communicating with them. And anytime I brought something up and they started using all those tactics on me, about mid argument, I would typically be like, you know what, you're right. And I would just drop it and I would agree with them. And I really thought that there was something wrong with me. And a lot of them take the time to want to get to know you, which is like really sweet at first. I also like to get to know the people that I'm trying to build a relationship with. But they do it in a way so that they can use your past trauma against you. So, for example, if you have been in a relationship that was not healthy prior, they will, in my experience, this person tried to say that since I was in this type of toxic relationship, that the one that I was currently in should have been a walk in the park. Their intentions are just never genuine. There's typically a reason they want to know something. So if they know your weak spots, then they know how to hit you and they know how to work you and get what they want. Sometimes they will start withholding affection, or they won't let you go to sleep. So that was something that I also dealt with, was if I didn't give this person exactly what they wanted when they wanted it, we weren't going to sleep that night. We would have to sit there and I would have him talk at me. Again, it wasn't him actually listening to anything I said. He would just talk at me and we would have to keep having this discussion until it was like 2 a.m. and I'm just tired. Most of the time I would end up agreeing because I have work and I just want it to be over because it's so exhausting. And this person would also tell me that I was manipulative for agreeing with them in that moment and then not following through with it. And many times, if they're not getting the amount of attention or validation that they want, they will make up a problem. And I mean, they will just start acting upset or choose something to suddenly be upset about again to give you or to make you give them the attention. And all of this is so difficult to explain, and I know it sounds so wild, and it is. But if you're in one of these relationships, I know that you know what I'm talking about, because they all look the same. They have the same patterns. Different, but the same pattern. A common trend is right before something really important that you have to do, or during an event, they'll start acting out. So they'll create a problem or choose to bring something up, and that'll make you have to move away from what you were really looking forward to do or what that important thing was and focus on them. So they always need that attention on them. And the romantic relationships with these people, they often want a partner that they can display like a trophy. You know, it's not about the actual connection. It's just they want somebody that looks good and that they can show off. And since we're talking about appearance, that's something else they'll try to slowly eat away at, is the way that you feel about your own appearance. Most of them aren't, they're not boldly an asshole. You know, most of the time, they're not just gonna straight up say that you're ugly, or they will sometimes, but not always. It'll be like small little jabs at parts that they already see your confidence kind of cracked in to make it worse. I think that they do this because they don't want you to think that you can do better. You know, if you feel bad about yourself and you don't like the way that you look, or you don't like the way that you're doing something, then why would you think that somebody else would like it, right? So they try to keep you small in that way too. Something else that's incredibly common that you'll see is they will slowly start distancing you from your friends and family, and they'll do this in a number of ways. So maybe if you take them somewhere, they're just a complete jerk to people, and it makes you not want to bring them there, you know, around your friends and family. So then you try to go hang out with your friends and family on your own, and they get jealous, or there's some type of issue that they have with it. And they make such a big deal about it that it's just easier for you to stop. So slowly you'll just stop doing these things that you like because they make it such a big deal. You know, you don't want your life to be hell when you get back home, and it's just easier to be compliant. And that's really what a lot of these tactics are about, is just trying to make you compliant with them. And not bluntly, you know, they don't typically just straight up tell you you can't do that. They'll show you, and it creates this pattern of, well, if I do this, then I'm going to have to go home and deal with this, and this person's going to act this specific way. So if I just don't do the things that I enjoy doing, I can avoid it altogether. And there's so much more that goes into these relationships, but those are the main ones. And it's never just one thing with these. It's always a mixture that makes them so overwhelming and draining. You know, you have somebody that constantly eats at your confidence and makes you question your reality. They also don't let you get proper sleep because they want to stay up and argue with you all night rather than finish the conversation at a more appropriate time. You're dealing with someone who's constantly cheating on you, who's constantly lying, verbally abusive, and someone that constantly needs your attention. So they're continuously taking all of your energy. You end up not being able to do things that you enjoy doing. Just all together is very draining. And many times people will ask you, why do you even stay? You know, if you do have somebody that you can talk to about the situation that you're in, because the logical answer is just to leave, right? But I think that we get sucked into these relationships and we feel stuck there for so many different reasons. I think that a lot of it is that we like to hold on to hope of getting that person that we knew in the beginning back. The beginning of these relationships are typically great. You know, mine was perfect. Like, I really thought that I found like the person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. caring, super respectful. This man completely understood boundaries, charming, would listen. All these things that were really great. It seemed like he really just wanted to be around me. Um, and it's that person that they show us at the beginning that we constantly try to fight to get back. And it also made it difficult because this was a person, in my situation, this was a person that I had known for a very long time. I never would have imagined that he was the person that he turned out to be. And yeah, I think I stayed so long because I constantly just tried to get back to what it was in the beginning, and it did exist, and that is just so hard to wrap your mind around. That person that you thought that you had, they don't exist. And leaving these types of relationships is also incredibly difficult because of how they act when you're trying to get out of them. It's like all the manipulation tactics that they use. It's like they use them tenfold when you're actually trying to leave. And often it can be scary because this is when they can typically get physically aggressive. They realize that they cannot control you mentally or emotionally with their words, so now they're trying to physically stop you from doing something. And again, not always, but just sometimes it's just something to be really careful about. And when you do leave, they oftentimes will still try to affect your life sometimes by blackmailing you or I guess I will explain when I left the individual. The best way I know how to explain how so I'm just gonna tell you what happened when I left. And this was the last time that I left because we were super on and off. It happened quite a bit. Okay, so when I decided to leave, 2 days prior to this, I had confronted him about something that he had agreed to do if we were to get back together. Again, we were super on and off, so I agreed that we could try it again, but he has to do this thing or it's just not going to work. Looking back, I don't know if he actually even ever did the thing that he was supposed to be doing, and it wasn't something that would directly benefit me. It was to improve himself. But anyway, so yeah, I tell him that he has to do this thing or I can't, do this anymore. And he acted like he understood at first. He just became very short with me, and then for the next 2 days, he avoided me. He made up excuses of why he couldn't see me. So during that 2 days, I'm sure he was stalking with another female or seeing another girl. I'm sure that's what happened. Because that's how it went. Like, if I did something that like slightly displeased him or called him out on something or showed that I needed him to improve on something, then he felt bad. Anyway, that's just how he dealt with it. So I ended up going to his house 2 days later, and he had a good portion of my things packed up already. And when I saw that, I immediately started crying. At this point in the relationship, I was so broken and just emotionally and mentally just drained. I had nothing left to give. I had no energy. And many arguments towards the end would end like that. I would just stop. I would just start crying and just agree with him because there was nothing, I understood at that point that it was just a losing battle, and no matter what, it's never going to actually be okay. So when I started crying, he looks at me and says that he deserves much better, and that if he was with somebody else, he wouldn't have all these problems. And he didn't elaborate on what problems he was referring to. I guess because I was like emotional and crying, and he didn't want to deal with it. I don't know. But yeah, he just keeps saying over and over again that he deserves so much better, and tries to make me feel guilty. And just lists all these reasons of why we shouldn't be together and why I should leave. So I said, okay. And I told him to go find somebody better then. And I started to get my things. And then he completely changes. His entire attitude, his body language, everything changes. And he sits down and starts getting emotional and says that he just did all of that. He just packed my things, told me that he deserved better, and all these, gave me all these reasons of why I'm not good enough so that I would disagree with him. So looking back, I don't know if that portion of my things that he had packed up were packed up because he had another girl over and was trying to tell her that, we were separated or something. And then that was the story that he could spin to me since I showed up. I don't know. I don't know. I don't care at this point, but yeah, so at this point, I'm ready. I'm ready for it to be over with. I can't do it anymore. He kept then saying that we would just do couples counseling, and couples counseling would not have worked. At that point, I was so emotional, and I cried so much because I was so broken and just drained that if I went in there with him, and this is a person that can pretend to be very charming, again, pretends to have a lot of empathy towards people. That counselor or therapist would have looked at me and thought that I was the issue. That's just the way that I would have been because I was so emotional and just broken at that point. But yeah, so he keeps asking me to go to couples therapy with him and all of that, and I say no, and then he starts trying to make me feel guilty and just saying that he deserves somebody that would put more effort into the relationship. I just wanted to leave, and he keeps standing in front of me at this point, and he would take my things out of my hands and put them back down and wouldn't let me go. So we get to the stairs, and he's still standing in front of me. He won't move, and this just goes on and on and on until I can actually finally get to the bottom of the stairs. And I get to the door and I look over and I realize that I still have several more items, and I should have just left it. And I should have just left, but I wanted my other thing, so I went over there and I was trying to get the rest of my stuff. So at this point, he is in my face. He's yelling no over and over and over again. Just no. Just keep saying no over and over, yelling. So I just say, all right. I just leave the rest of my things there, and I just try to go to the door again. And again, he won't let me go. He keeps standing in front of me. And I finally get out the door, and I'm walking very quickly, carrying my things to my car, and he's behind me. It was snowing this day. He didn't have on shoes, a shirt. He was just wearing shorts. Follows me to my car. And I get in my car, and I lock the door, and I look over, and he's just he gets down eye level and just starts staring at me through the window. I think he was trying to scare me. I'm not sure what that was. So whatever. I'm finally able to drive away, and that should have been done. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. So I ended up having to block his number. He ended up blocking me on Facebook and putting this big post about what a shitty person I am and how I'm manipulative and ruined his life and mental health. It's the ultimate betrayal because it's you care about someone so much that you stay in something that is not okay, hoping that they'll change, and then they turn everything around on you. This person also made an Instagram account, so this was also kind of weird to begin with, but he made an Instagram account with just pictures of us on it, and then whenever I left, he decided to upload like text messages that I had sent him and screenshots of YouTube videos, like my YouTube videos, trying to explain how I'm manipulative, or it was just very weird. And then he also messaged me and told me, and then he also told me that everybody agrees with him. And there's somebody that I work with that I respect a whole lot. They're higher up at where I work at. He told me specifically that even that person agreed with him. And I know that he chose to pick that example because he knew that that would, I don't know, hurt me, or maybe he wants to know that he's, I don't know, maybe he wants me to like think that he's trying to now affect my job. I don't know. But yeah, it never ended, and that's still the story that he tells people. He still tries to get people to think that I'm like this terrible person. But he does all that now because he can't control me in any other way. And I think that was enough to make me understand just how like sick and twisted this individual was, because it did. That hurt like hell. I literally gave this person so much of my time, 4 years of my life. Every now and then somebody will like take a picture of something that he's done and send it to me, and I'm sure that's what he wants. I'm sure he probably gets like a kick of thinking that he's ruining my mood by posting whatever. I don't know. I will never understand why people choose to live that way. But hopefully this video helps somebody who's in a relationship or thinks that they're in a relationship like that, because if you leave sooner, it won't get as bad. So if you see signs and they're abusive in those ways anyway, and it's still early on, just go ahead and leave, because it'll only get worse. I promise it will only get worse. I stayed with somebody that I saw a lot of potential in, and somebody that I hoped would change, and it just got worse. I don't think I ever helped him. I think that now he's better at manipulating people. And it's just the irony of the situation. If there's something that you would like me to talk about more, or if there's anything that I can try to explain to somebody in a situation that's like this that you think would be helpful, please reach out and let me know, and I can make more videos. Again, it is something that I find so important to talk about, because again, I just wish that I would have known what I know now, because it wouldn't have been so bad. That's what an unhealthy relationship looks like. So if you see those signs, you're not crazy. It's not a you problem. Please don't think that. Leave if you can. Find someone to talk to. And I hope this video is helpful for somebody out there. But thank you for watching, and again, if there is something else that you'd like me to cover, or if you would like advice on something, I can make more YouTube videos, maybe like question and answer videos or something. If you all think that would be beneficial, just let me know. But okay, I hope you have a good day. Bye.